All right, let's talk about backbrushing and why it's so important, specifically in a log home. So your logs have pores in them. We use a firm bristled box brush. And the reason that the firm bristle is important is, typically we're using it on a pole, like a 4-foot pole, and really working into the wood. So you've got the pores of the wood. As that brush goes over the pores, it actually injects, it pushes that stain back in through the wood fibers, through the at a cellular level. Goes in, it solidifies, they call it anchoring, back through those holes in the pores. So injecting it in there is what really makes a difference when it comes to the adhesion properties. You just spray it on and let it sit on the surface. You don't get that extra benefit of it anchoring in there. So we spray it on because it's a lot more efficient than dipping in a bucket, pulling out. It's a lot quicker, a lot more efficient. So we spray it on, but then we back brush it in. I say that not every product, not every scenario is equal. So the top coat, if we're doing a 4-coat system, Capture Cascade, Permachinks Ultra 2 Lime, backbrushing is very critical when you still have the open pores. But at some point in that process, usually after the first coat of pigment, sometimes after the second coat of pigment, those pores are full of stain and the new coat is adhering to the prior coat. At that point, backbrushing is not helpful. Right, at that point, you're just dragging the product. You can get streaks. At whatever point, that's depending on the porosity and how much stain your logs are absorbing. It can be different on different sides of your cabin. So, ideally, we are not brushing that clear coat at all. We are always using a back brush on the coats where the pores are not saturated. So I will say there are the penetrating oils, right? Those products are applied differently. Those are applied with what's called a flood coat. You spray it on until it is running. You want that saturated and then you brush it in. You are just physically trying to get as much product into those logs as you can. Those products, you cannot do a second coat. The first coat will reject the second coat. So, you should put a coat on a new home. You put a coat on, you wait a year till that's really soaked in. I mean, that product can take several weeks before it really soaks in. And then they tell you, WoodGuard Q8, put a coat on year 2 to really get that product in. So there are variances in product and then obviously variances in the different number of coats based on your log porosity and saturation levels. So that's something to think about. That's why we backbrush, why we use firm bristle brushes on the log walls. Using the poles, using block brushes, firm bristle brushes that really get it in there, that helps to get that stain back in the checks too. You never are gonna get all the way back in those checks coated, but if you can get stain back in there 3/8 of a quarter inch, 3/8 of an inch, half inch, that's great. That's where the majority of that moisture touches. And what does get all the way in the back typically can breathe and get out before causing issues. That's a little bit about backbrushing, why we do it, and how it benefits